Okay, we are live. Hangouts on Air is going away August 1st. It's not good. That's tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to do. Hey, everybody. Jem Schofield of the C47, and welcome to another episode of Gearbox 2.0. This is a live stream, and it is for you. And we answer questions, meaning I answer questions, you guys answer questions. We have the chat going. Hey, Bill. Hey, Travis. Hey, Sam. Travis, thanks for the kind words. I appreciate that very much. That's why I'm doing it. So if it's helping you, then job is getting done. So it is Wednesday, July 31st. And again, I'm getting this little message saying Hangouts on Air is going away tomorrow. So it's going to be something else, OBS or something, I don't know. And just some housekeeping before we get started with today's episode. Number one, next week. It's a big question mark. Traveling internationally with my entire family. We're a family of 5, and we will have just arrived. And so unless I get a chance to shoot an episode and post it for next Wednesday morning for Gearbox, then there probably won't be an episode. Buenos dias, Andres. And then Cameron Flask, I got to talk to the boys about that. So we'll see. Definitely 2 weeks from now, though, for sure. I should be with family, so I should be able to do Cameron Flask and also a regular Gearbox episode. Today, though, it's a normal day. We have this episode, and then later today at 3 p.m. Pacific, I will be hosting this week, and we're talking about, are we going to become obsolete? It's not all dire, though. It's going to be things like, well, what are the changes that are happening, and how can we as content creators adapt to those changes? And I think that it's largely positive, but I do want to talk about what's going on, sort of where I see things, maybe where Caleb and Ben sees things, and of course, where you see them. So let's get going. Okay, so today's episode, I've been thinking about it, and one of the things that I've wanted to do for a while is just allow you to ask questions, things that are related to what you're doing in production, and hopefully not get bothered too much. There we go. But there you go. So basically just questions that you have. What's up, the film guy? About pre-production, about production, about dealing with clients, about equipment. It's a help you sort it out episode today. And so the chat is going to be incredibly important to this episode. I can, talk about stuff. I can just go ahead and ramble about how I got started and things like that. But now that we have Smog the cat, I mean, come on, hello. It's time to start chatting about stuff. So, what time is it over there, film guy? You must be, where are you? Are you down under? Because then it's really late right now over there. What is it? 2 and change, 2:04 a.m. in Sydney. What's up, Bad Karma? 7:14. Don't know what that 7:14 is all about, but I'm sure I'll find out one day. So, so we got some people in the chat. So the whole idea today is post questions, and I will talk to you. So, hey, Jem, since you mentioned traveling to Europe, what adapter do you use to charge equipment since plugs are different from USA? I actually just ordered some new adapter plugs, and they are arriving today. I have kind of the standard US, and I'm going to be in the UK, so that's the same one as Hong Kong, the big honkin' one. And basically all of the equipment I have is 100 to 240. So I'm not trying to transform or do anything with that signal except for adapt it to that plug. The nice thing now is that there are, wait a second. Oh, got it, Bad Karma. The nice thing about now is that on places like Amazon, you can get adapters that the one that I'm getting, that I'll be using, has 3 US plug inputs, And then it also has 2 USB ports, and then it goes into a UK plug format. Again, it doesn't do anything in terms of changing things from 110 to 220 or anything like that. But my laptop and most of my devices, I think all of the devices I have, are able to adapt to that. And then getting some for the kids and things like that so they can charge their iPhones and their devices. It's all about devices and dongles and cables and all of that crap now. I still have some other adapters around, but I'm going to try to keep it simple and not get too complicated on this trip. I'm going to be bringing the XT3. I'll bring my focus monitor. I'll bring the wireless Go, which they just announced the wireless Go Lav. What do they call it? I don't know. They just announced it yesterday for 79 bucks. And again, the idea is to keep the kit as small as possible. I'll obviously have my MacBook Pro and some stuff for connectivity, but I'm going to just keep everything into one backpack for this trip. And then I'm going to try to enjoy myself and spend time with my family. So it's 9:04 a.m. For Bad Karma. I'm asking about the film guy. Yes, Perth, Western Australia, midnight, because of your time zone. So you're not as late as Sydney right now, which I guess is 2 hours difference. Is that right? Am I wrong about that? I think I'm right about that. Do I think, this is from the film guy, that it's odd the Zcam E2 markets itself as a RAW camera and talks about possible frame rates with it, but doesn't have a release date for the RAW, and now they are bringing out 3 other cams? Yes and no. I mean, based on the way things are going in our industry, that's not unusual. If they know it's a feature that's coming to the camera, and we hope it is, then they can market it that way, and I don't think that that's illegal or it's a misrepresentation if it's on their schedule. We do know that in general that, you know, features do come to cameras when they are announced pre-release, but that's not 100% of the case. There's even been cameras that have been on things like Kickstarter that have never materialized. But it's a company that is producing cameras, they're shipping cameras. I have no relationship with them. I'm interested in what they're doing. I think that we have a very different landscape right now in terms of the camera market than we did even 3 or 4 years ago. So when we were talking about RAW then as opposed to now, it wasn't a novelty back then, but to get that feature in a camera that was inexpensive was really reserved for Blackmagic Design. And now we're seeing RAW and it being introduced into cameras for many manufacturers, and also the opportunity to, if it's not internally being recorded in RAW, and Blackmagic is still probably doing that the best, there are external options for RAW recording. Now, if you're not in a medium-sized to large-scale production environment, my feeling is, unless you're going with a compressed RAW format, then you probably shouldn't be shooting RAW in most situations. But I do think that BMD RAW and ProRes RAW hold promise for us to have that small footprint, but to gain the advantages of being able to access what's being captured by the sensors of these camera systems. So that's my take on that. Sydney is 3 hours. Hey now, so whoa, so it's after 3 a.m. Okay, good. I have a lot of calls. Boom. Who's selling the wireless Go Lav for 79 bucks? Well, it's just been announced, and it's a new Lav, so it was just announced yesterday. I just got the press release on it. I don't have it. I think New Shooter has put something up on it on their website, and it will be $79 US. So I think that's interesting. They're also apparently making a version of it, which is a variation, because I guess it's a different microphone that terminates in the locking connector that you can use with things like the FILMMAKER kit. So I don't know. I got to check all that stuff out. Do I know what's happening with the Nikon for you, ATOMOS RAW recording? I don't. In fact, it's interesting. I was looking at an article this morning, and I was wondering exactly the same thing. I don't have any clue what's going on with that. I mean, I know that it wasn't supposed to be to market, I think, quite yet. I think it's supposed to be early autumn, but we'll see what the deal is. Okay, so what else we got? ProRes RAW for life. Hey, Shiznuts. I kind of agree, but I think we need ProRes RAW 2.0. I really want to be able to access, well, what I'm seeing we can get with BMD RAW. And I don't know if it's going to be necessarily a race with those two formats, but I would really like to sort of see this start to come to market a little bit more. This C200 is a beautiful little camera. It has cinema raw light, but I would really love it if Canon would create a compressed version at half the data rate, at let's say 500 megabits per second, because it would obviously allow me to record more onto the CFast cards and would have that lighter footprint, so I would be more likely to use it in my production. Okay, so there you go. People are gonna have to wait. So Nikon and Nikon, I know you do. When you meet a new client, how do you introduce yourself? Owner, insert new media buzzword, name only. Smog the Cat is asking. You know, it's interesting. I don't, you know, I've been doing this for a while now. And when I first started, I was a lot younger than I am right now. And I would say that, you know, I in earnest started a company in my mid-20s. And my viewpoint in terms of dealing with clients has changed dramatically in that period of time. 20 plus years later, I am less concerned with titles, and I think the world has changed. That sounds stupid, but I think the world has changed a lot. And back then, I think there was a little bit more of a conservative attitude in terms of how you had to do business. You know, this is pre the internet sort of explosion, the whole idea of the Razorfishes of the world, you know, open concept office spaces. It was starting to happen in the mid-90s, but it really was sort of at a beginning seed or phase. And I just think that there was still a more traditional mentality in terms of how you deal with people from a business perspective. I think also the older you get to a certain degree, the more comfortable you become in your own skin to a certain degree. And so I think that for me, it's very conversational now when I speak to people. And I do realize that people are just people. And you're going to occasionally run into people, which is pretty easy to tell, that are your red flags, that are difficult, that are not going to be nice people to work with. But overall, everybody is just doing a job, and they want to do their job well. And they want to work with people who are going to help them accomplish what they're trying to accomplish well. So just very conversational. You know, my name's Jem Schofield. I tell them a little bit about myself, what I do. But I start asking them questions very early on. And what I want to do in my first contact with a potential client is I want to listen. So it's a lot of asking them about what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish. And I'm not big on buzzwords. And there's not a lot of granulars that are being dropped and things like that. That's probably an old word now anyway. And there's my answer to that question. What's up? Let's see. My latest gear is SD cards. I've gotten the latest 8K compatible Toshiba SDXC, UHS blah, blah, blah cards. We'll try out 2 of them, see if they, yeah. Always been camp, SanDisk Extreme Pro. Yeah, I'm a big SanDisk fan. I've been using some Angel Bird cards now in my XT3. They're match packs, which I like. So yeah, I think that, you know, let me know how that goes, Shiznuts. So I picked up the Canon G7X Mark II, which you mentioned last week. For being a Canon camera, the AF is surprisingly atrocious. Really? Interesting to know, especially for a 1-inch sensor, because generally the smaller the sensor, the easier the camera is to deal with AF, and the larger the sensor, the harder that is. Smog the Cat, cool, thanks for sharing. All right, let's get some more questions going here. We got some people. Let's go. Pre-production, production, dealing with clients, equipment questions. You can, of course, chat with each other, but if I'm not seeing anything, then I'm just going to start babbling, which is not good for anybody. Again, just want to mention that today at 3 p.m. Eastern, there is going to be another episode of Camera and Flask with myself, Caleb Pike, and Ben Barden, and we are going to be talking about, are we becoming obsolete? Any thoughts on or theories on RØDE's upcoming camera announcement? I don't really have any thoughts on it, except for that it looks like it's going to be a camera. It's a grain of salt at the moment, and it is either going to be something that we are going to be goo goo gaga over, and it's going to make the Sigma FP look like a child's toy, or it's going to price us in an area where we're going to say, why are we going to get that when we have this, 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 and this in terms of choices? 4 inches in either direction, whatever that means. No more than, is that right? I think the idea. So it could be pretty deep. That's about this. Width-wise, that's interesting. That's teeny tiny. Not quite sure how that's all going to work. And most things are wider than 4 inches. That's about a 6-inch. So I don't know. And here's the deal. When you are taking a look at a camera like the Blackmagic Design 4K Pocket Cinema camera, and I say pocket in quotes, as we know, for the price that that camera is, I don't know if a plus $5,000 US camera is going to get me excited in that form factor. If it's full frame, if it's raw 6K plus resolution, if it doesn't need a million things attached to it to power it and to make it do other things, then it might be interesting. But I think when I'm looking at cameras in that $5,000+ price range, I'm looking for workhorse cameras day in, day out. I'm looking for, well, the cameras that I did the 4K for 10K series for Able Cine on. So you're looking at starting in the sort of bottom of that at the FS5 II, which is now less than $5,000 US, FS7 II, C200, C300 Mark II, EVA 1, and then the Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K. These are kind of all workhorse cameras. You take them out, they have built-in NDs, you know, they have XLR inputs. Some of them, like the EVA 1, has timecode port. Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K does as well. These are cameras that you can get a lot of work done quickly and easily. You're not adding a lot of GAC. Now, I'm not, you know, I don't want to be a hypocrite here. I mean, I'm using an XT3, and I never really thought that I'd be going back to and using a lot of mirrorless cameras or DSLR cameras for production. But with the sort of advent of 10-bit, you know, 420 internally, high data rates, there's a lot to like about those cameras. So there you go. There's my thoughts on that. Okay, so what do we else? We got the red Komodo, right? There you go. You use Instagram, Facebook for networking. Seems to be the way these days. I absolutely am horrible at social media. She's nuts. And I am horrible at social media. And part of the thing is that I try to split my time between what I want to do for a living, which is content creation and education. And that's sometimes the same world. It's sometimes very separate worlds. I want to be with my family and friends. And yes, I want to grow this channel and do all of those things. It's just, I don't know. It's and then when I get on set, it's very, very hard for me to get into the mental mindset of taking photographs and posting to social. So yes, I am and have accounts for pretty much all of the social media platforms. I go in phases, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I have found that, you know, the one thing that I want to do consistently is create content on this channel on a regular basis. And so that's what I've been doing. And I should be using social more. I should be posting things on a more regular basis. I am doing it. We are doing it, but it is not nearly as effective as I would like it to be. And I should be doing it more. Okay, so what is the procedure to license a well-known song for a project, and an estimation about the cost maybe? Bill, there's no right answer to that. You have publishing companies and you have to contact them. There are places where you can basically license songs, and of course, the bigger the song, the more expensive it's going to be to license it. So that's why, to a certain degree, we have sites like MusicBed and Artlist, very different sites, and other sites that are starting to release music by original artists, but they're not the songs that we all know, and they are not the songs that are necessarily going to be the ones that have that instant recognition, and to get that is very expensive. I have never licensed a big song. I have actually contacted an artist directly and gotten permission to use a song in the past, but they weren't a big artist. They just had an album on iTunes, and I found them, and I thought this would be a great little music bed for a video that I was doing for a corporate client. If I remember correctly, we came up with a small fee for it, and they gave me permission to use it. Okay, so thoughts on taking a step back to do internships to get bigger production experience. Work is dry where I'm at, and it's something I'm considering even though I've been freelancing several years. Gregory, you know, I think that, you know, one of the best things that you could do if you've been working for a while is, yes, if there's an internship possibility that you're excited about, then maybe do that, especially if it can turn into more work. But if there's a certain type of work that you're trying to get, then maybe your time would be better spent starting to build up spec work in that particular area. And if there are other creatives that you do work with, maybe it's getting together so that you can build something that is and can be shown. I'm not a big reel person, but I think that creating the type of work that you want to be doing is hugely advantageous. Can I talk about when not to work with a client? Learning who to say no to has been an important lesson over the years I've been doing this. So yeah, for me, and I talk about this a little bit, if you go back to the live stream where I talk about budgets and proposals, there are some red flags that come up when you have potential clients. And a lot of this really has to do with getting into a situation where you're working with a company, and generally a particular individual of the company who is looking to you to be the solution for what they do as a job. Now, I look at myself as a content creator, as a storyteller, as somebody who is creating something for a company or an individual. But in order to do that effectively, I have to understand what their marketing strategy is, at least for the particular product or service that I'm dealing with. I have to understand what their brand stands for, but it's not my job to create those things, meaning their marketing strategy or their brand strategy. So if I was working internally in the company and that was part of my job description, then that may be something that I would be responsible for. But that red flag means that you're going to take the fall if for some reason it doesn't do what it's supposed to do by the people or person generally that is hiring you to do it. So the no thing is generally a gut feeling, but it also has to do with that gut comes from the interaction with that individual and whether or not they are trying to have you be their solution to a problem they're trying to solve, as opposed to being a creative collaborator who is understanding what it is that they do as a company. Another big red flag is if you ask them those questions about their company and what it is that they do and who their target audience is, if they cannot, in relatively simple layman's terms, explain to you what it is that they do and say, oh, don't worry, our customers know what we do and who we are, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to do that, for you to explain succinctly, which we have to do in video, what it is that a company is doing in terms of offering a product or service. Good. So, thanks for pointing out this Sue Ray monopod the other day. Seems to be the solution for my hunt. It's a great monopod. I have the ROADIE C6 carbon tripod. Yeah, they make great stuff too. Let's see what else. Let me see. I'd like to Confinity next, perhaps, or Zcam. I had back their original E1. Yeah, Confinity is an interesting company. It depends on where you are in the world. I think one of the big problems that we have here in the US is they're not really set up as a camera company per se. It's not as if Confinity has a face to them as a company similar to a company like Aputure. And that's a big difference in terms of consumer confidence and interaction. One of the things that we really want from a company, though later we complain because the prices go up a little bit, is we want to have some sort of customer service component, and we want to have interaction, we want to have community, and those things are important. Artlist I subscribe to. It's great for music beds and for things that I'm doing for certain clients. It's definitely not the solution for every single project, but so far I've found that it does the trick. One song on Artlist for an entire year, for me, that pays for it. Yes, Rimrock is also horrible at getting BTS photos. How much work do I get off of social media? Most of my work is from referrals. You know, for me personally, it's an interesting thing because I spend a lot of time creating educational content or content around educating people about what we're doing. And I found that it's been a slow runway, but between doing workshops and also what I do here, I think that is advantageous for me and what I do as a brand. Pardon me. That doesn't mean that it's going to be the right thing for certain people. If you're going out and trying to get commercial work as a still photographer, then Instagram may be exactly the thing that you want to do. If you're trying to get commercial work as a cinematographer, I'm not sure that that platform does the same thing, though it doesn't hurt to be putting your work out there, even if it's just BTS or still frames of what you're doing, which again, I am horrible at doing. Let's see. Thank you, Jim. Could you make an episode on how to get properly credited on jobs you participate? Well, Bill, the long and the short of it is, as a company, I actually put that into my proposals and my contracts. So I actually say that I'm going to be able to use that stuff. Now, the trick here is that if you have talent involved, what you need to do on set is you need to get them to sign releases for not only your client, but also for you. But if I have a signed contract that says that I can use those materials that I produce for promotional purposes, marketing purposes, and that's in the signed contract, and then I get the releases from the talent or the artists that I have on set, then I'm allowed to use that stuff in promotional activities. So that's kind of what I do. It gets a little bit harder when you write a proposal in the budget and it goes to a client and then they turn that around and they create a statement of work. You can fight for it, and I don't mean fight, fisticuffs. You can just kind of fight for having that inside of the statement of work, that you'd like to include that clause that you would like to be able to use it for promotional and marketing purposes only, or educational purposes in my case, because I like to go into classrooms and actually show people projects. And that stuff is generally not, broadcast. I don't like people to record a workshop because people are paying for those. It's really for your attendance, and then I let people take stills of setups and things like that. And speaking of workshops, I've got 2 coming up at NAB New York in October. So I'll be doing them off-site at a place called Baza Studio. So if you're in that general area and you want to get more in depth into small to no crew production or lighting, cinematic video lighting, then you can check that out. Okay, let's see what we got here. This is nice. Got some real stuff happening here. Any recommendations on learning more advanced lighting and grip skills? It seems to be a very lacking subject matter for online education. Well, it may not be advanced for you. But I have 2 courses on lynda.com, which is LinkedIn Learning. One of them is a little bit more advanced, where we do some setups. We blacked out a house, and we have more narrative and commercial setups. So that might be worth at least checking out. MZ Pro is a resource for some stuff, and really just the normal players overall are the ones where you're going to find some education in the realm of cinematography. And then I have book recommendations, so you can check out the c47.com. There's like an equipment section, and you look under books, and you'll see books that I recommend having to do with cinematography and lighting. So, yep, and Shane actually has a new course on MZ Pro that you can check out. Subvids, afternoon to you. Let's see what we've got. How do you use sliders if you do it all, that is? Subvids asks. Not very much anymore, to be honest with you. I mean, we do occasionally bring out a slider for interview setups. I think that is a ship that has sailed for the most part for me. And I'm kind of grappling with whether or not I feel that in most situations, a gimbal is the right type of tool for me personally and the way that I like to shoot. I tend to like to be on sticks, handheld, and some sort of shoulder-mounted rig. I don't shoot a lot of slow-mo. That might change. I go through my phases as I do with the way I light. But it's not a tool that I'm using very oftentimes because of speed or lack thereof in terms of setting it up. And there's some nice things. I like this new Rhino one that I'm seeing. Syrup has some interesting stuff with the new Genie 2. Small and compact with lots of, small and compact with lack of cables is what I'm really looking for. What I really want is I want to track, and that obviously has to have something to bring that camera backwards and forwards, or, push-ins and things like that. But I really want everything else to be self-contained within the head is the ideal situation. So built-in battery, I want it to be able to at least pan and hopefully also tilt with that head. So 3 axes is ideal for me. Okay, so let's see what else we got. There was a guy building a fake Lamborghini by 3D printing one. He said he went to the University of YouTube. That's pretty funny. Okay. I also wanted to know if you know any guild members to say ASC or Local 600 you can bring on. That's a route I want to go. The membership booklet doesn't seem to help. You got to get on sets, Gregory. I do know people in Local 600, and union is definitely a path for some people. It is maybe a path that you want to take. Well, I don't know if you want to be in as an AC or DP or how you're trying to get in. ASC is a whole other thing. ASC is you've got to be nominated by, I think, 2 ASC members and then show your body of work, and there's an interview process. That's for people who want to be career cinematographers or are career cinematographers, but 600 is a big union. ASC is really an educational brand and is designed for a very, very different purpose. So you hear a lot of DPs get booked off Instagram, Alex. Well, that's good to know. maybe I should keep posting crap. Though I have to say, for me personally, that I very oftentimes I'm in a producer director role, and then sometimes I'm DPing those projects, and then I do take on projects where I DP just only. So let's see what we got here. I don't do any cloud hosting, so that's more of a question for Caleb Pike from DSLR Video Shooter. Yes, Rimrock. It's the ones that your gut tells you that you're going to get in trouble with. You will get in trouble with, and if they're a-holes when you're dealing with them in the beginning, they're going to just become amplified in that area the more you go along with them. And generally, the time that you spend with a client like that is going to come back to bite you. Never, and I'll say this 100 million times, never make money the product of what we do in our industry. It should always be the byproduct. If you're doing this for the money, go find another career, because it ain't the money career. You'll hit sometimes. You'll have some really good months, as in individual months or a few months in a row. But if you're in this thing for the long term, get ready for a roller coaster ride. And you ride the roller coaster. That's just the way it goes. Okay, so what else we got? Yeah, okay, that's fine. Let's see. Some clients, some more client red flags for me is when they try to negotiating lower prices. So let's talk about that. Lower prices. Here's the deal. You gather all the information for your proposal and you put together a proposal and the budget. It's a lot of work for me, and I'm faster at it now, a lot faster at it now than I used to be. But the process is still lengthy, and it's still time that you're putting in, and for me, non-billable time. But here's the thing. When you submit that proposal, be confident in the price that you're submitting. And if the client wants that price to be lower and you just lower the price, then you have cheapened your service. You're saying, I charged you too much and I'm putting in, you're not selling a mattress here, you know? Mattresses and rugs are supposed to be 50% off. And when you go to Lowe's and you don't want to shop at another home improvement store, or you go to Home Depot and you don't want to shop at Lowe's, and somebody has a sale price, then you want to price match. That is not the business that we're in. So if you're going to lower your price, then change the parameters of your project. Say you're going to get less time in terms of the overall length of your video. There's going to be less production time. You're going to do 1 day instead of 2 days. The crew is going to get smaller, and some other things are going to change. So you have to change parameters if you're going to change the price. If they ask to pay by credit card, make them pay by PayPal, I guess. And yeah, the lots of work in the future is a bunch of bull crap, and it's a grain of salt for me always. I'm a glass half full, grain of salt person. That's what I am. Okay. Okay. B-roll holes. Okay. What is my qualifying process for new clients? Alex asks. I don't know if I have a qualifying process, except for I trust my instincts, my gut. So if I think that there's red flags that can't be overcome, I can't collaborate, then that's one. I think I also have to be interested in what it is that they're doing. I want to learn something when I'm working on a project, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to take work that's in a similar area that I've done work in the past, as long as I'm overall interested. And then my other piece of advice is, if you strongly disagree with something, then don't do work in that area, because then it does mean that what you're doing is you're making money the main objective of what you're doing in terms of your work, and it is not the byproduct of what you're doing creatively. And that's important, at least to me. Bill asked, do I have a reel? No, I have work up that I put on the C47. Most of it's old now and newer work isn't there. I do have my YouTube channel where I continue to add playlists. I actually need to add the ZEISS bodice project that I did at Red Rock, though there is an episode that has some of those clips. And a lot of the content that I'm creating is educational content for companies in our industry. So what I'm doing is creating playlists for that. But I'm not aspiring to get work as a, I'll say, career DP. I do DP and I light all of the time, but it's not my goal to shoot feature films as a director of photography. It is my goal to always get better at lighting, and I spend a lot of time studying and doing setups and trying new things, and then also tying that into education. And I'm lighting all of the time. I'm just not trying to get work on commercials and things like that as a DP. It's just not a goal of mine. So if something came my way where somebody said now, as opposed to maybe 5, 6 years ago, would you be interested in DPing this short film or this longer form? I might be interested in that. I'd be scared crapless, but I would now be ready to jump into that challenge, whereas back then I probably would have been a lot more hesitant. In fact, I did have an offer at one point and I said, I don't think that I'm the right fit for that. I also hire a lot of DPs and cinematographers for work that I do as a producer or a director or producer-director, and that's an important relationship for me as well, and one that I always learn from. And you know, the best thing you can do as a producer is understand production and how it works, and then hire people who are really good at what they do and who also have a good temperament and are easy to work with. So what do we got here? My friend in Perth was uploading to Instagram. He got discovered and now has been second unit on 2 Netflix films. There you go, the film guy. That's there. Yeah, if they want to be paid by Western Union Nigerian prince, then maybe that's a red flag. Any tips on collating B-roll? Give me a little more information on that, subvids. Do you mean like gathering and actually shooting GVs and B-roll, or do you mean just sort of organizing it? Let me know what that is. Yes, Bad Karma, you missed a special guest of the week. It was very short. It was like 30 seconds. You'll have to go back. No, I'm just kidding. Do you are thinking medium format will become the new full frame in terms of popularity and affordability? That's a good question. I think my answer is no. You know, the interesting thing about medium format is it's kind of like IMAX in your pocket. So you start to look at companies like Fujifilm and where they might be going, and they're sitting in the APS-C and the medium format space. And then you have, we'll say, the main players, and they are going to full frame large format. And that is a trend. So I don't necessarily, I mean, look, there's an Alexa 65, so it doesn't mean that they're not going into larger format. It doesn't mean that Sony and some of the other companies can't go ahead and design cameras that have larger sensors for specific applications. Again, digital IMAX, if you will. But when it comes to us, I think that we'll see a smaller segment of the market gravitating to medium format for video production. And part of that's probably going to be that there's not going to be a lot of companies producing those cameras. And that means in turn that the lenses are going to generally be more expensive, and they generally are more expensive for medium format. We'll have to see where it goes, but my guess is it's going to be a full frame game for the foreseeable future. What to look for B-roll? on interviews and event recording? Well, for the interviews itself, it's always better to record the interview before you shoot the B-roll. It's almost never the case that you get to do that, because then you know what you're looking for when you go out and shoot that stuff. You know, it's people working in their environment. It's the product and or service being delivered or used. So product being used, service being delivered. And then it's just establishing location and interaction. I think is very important when you see more than one person interacting with somebody else or other people. Those are the things that I'm looking for. And then don't be afraid to, especially when you're shooting B-roll, get that camera at different heights and shoot from different angles. And also don't be afraid to have things in the foreground out of focus, just sort of a little bit dirty and either revealing something past that or that kind of stuff. You know, give it some life, give it some motion, and yeah, there you go. I got that. All right, so so what's how to shoot cinematic interviews, 10 easy steps, indie mogul videos. Yep, Ted is there. And what else we got here? Okay, thanks. Haven't been able to find an answer to this anywhere. Does the USB port on the Fuji X-T3 allow for external recording, or is it just for plugging in external batteries? I have no idea, because I would just use the HDMI out so I can get a 10-bit 422, and maybe it is, but I would not think of using a USB port for that. I don't think so. I don't think it is a recording terminal, as they would call it. I'm looking away. Hold on. I apologize, guys. I'm looking to move away from crazy rigs built around my GH5S and into something more ergonomic and usable. Any camera most clients prefer. Chris, the clients don't prefer the cameras. We prefer the cameras. The clients couldn't give a rat's ass for the most part, unless they're in our industry, what camera we're using. So they're used to seeing all form factors of cameras now. I think what you have to do is you have to pick the camera that is going to work for you as an operator. And I would recommend selfish self-promotion, but I mean, it's just a free series that you can watch. Checking out on Abel Cine's YouTube channel, the 4K for 10K series that I did. I break down 6 digital cinema cameras that cost less than $10,000 US. The idea of the series is not to compare the cameras, it's to talk about the features, the main features of each camera and where I see them fitting in small to no crew production. Each one of the cameras in that series has pluses and minuses, and you'll find a camera hopefully that works the best for you. I'm looking for a workhorse camera system. I'm primarily shooting with 3 cameras in that series, the C200, the C300 Mark II, and the FS7 II. And those are the ones that I'm using on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that the other cameras are not good. I would say of them all, I am least impressed with the FS5 II, because the FS7 II is so much better in terms of the image that it captures, the data rate, how fat the image is, and what you can do with it in post-production. So yes, form factor is a little bit larger, but I am so much more excited about the image from the FS7 II than I am from the FS5 II. And then I think all of the other cameras have really nice images. I have not tried the new essentially color science behind the Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K. I've been hearing really good things about it, so that might be also something to check out. Ergonomically out of the box, the Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K is without question the best camera to get up on your shoulder. You find, you know, buy a few of the, you know, kind of standard accessories that you need to get for that camera, the EVF, the shoulder, you know, rig, and you're still at, I don't know, $7,500 US. So great little camera, a little heavy for some people, but especially for that kind of handheld, that's where the EVA 1, you know, C200, C300 Mark II kind of fit in, but you get the idea. So, yeah. So ergonomically, you're not going to get more ergonomic by moving to the BMP-CC 4K. You have to go into one of those larger camera systems. So there we go. Full frame responsibly, people. We don't need to go back to the 5D Mark II days when people can't keep stuff in focus. You know, one of the biggest problems that we have in terms of keeping focus with what we're doing is that we're shooting oftentimes in UHD 4K or DCI 4K, and we're looking at our images on 1080 displays. So if we're not getting a pixel to pixel when we are looking at that, then it's really hard. So as we move towards native 4K displays, it'll be easier for us to keep focus. Also, the advancements in our autofocus systems and touch focus are getting so good now that for small to no crew stuff and for one-man bands and operators, we are getting better tools to help us keep what we want in focus when we want it to be in focus. That was a mouthful. Okay, here we go. Have I had any experience using the Osmo Pocket? Would you recommend for interview situations? James Parrish, I have, and I wouldn't. It's a cool little tool. Doesn't get me very excited. And if I own another camera system, I'd much rather go into a Ronin SC than I would a Pocket Osmo. I get the advantages to having something that's the size of a spy camera that can shoot in gimbal situations, but there's so much that you have to do with these small sensors to really get a great image, because the great image is there in ideal conditions, but as soon as those conditions become less ideal, that's when everything starts to break down. Okay, let's see what we got. New Fuji medium format, perfect photo video hybrid. I don't think it's a perfect video hybrid yet. I think they've got to put a lot into there. We need an XT3 inside of that medium format camera before we can really say that. I mean, it seems okay. I don't think it's going to perform the same way as an XT3 does, but I might be wrong about that. So let's see what happens. What? Oh. Okay, so let's see. Do I think that the BMP-CC 4K is a good alternative to the UMP when the 8-bit of an A7 III just isn't robust enough? Well, look, Travis, without question, that pocket camera is one of the best values that's out there on the market. Brian Conley, who I know, just did a nice review of the camera on Film Riot. He loves it. I think that it is a certain class of camera in terms of, would I want that camera if I was shooting corporate gigs day in and day out? No, I need things like built-in XLR inputs. I need built-in neutral density. I need a camera that I can configure in many different ways, but quickly and easily. But if you're shooting short or long form narrative, you're shooting some music video stuff, I think that it's exceptional. I think that it's great. Now, it does have a smaller sensor, so if you're looking for that large sensor look, you're going to either have to speed boost that sucker or you're going to have to look at a different camera. Let's see what we've got here. I wish I had a clone of myself to put to work as an editor. I love shooting, but think editing is too tedious. Shiznuts, this is a big problem, and I am and was a control freak, and I had to let go. If you want to grow your business and you want to do more production and you want to be involved more in production, and that's your area, you are going to have to transition. You are going to have the faith in other people, especially people who want to be editors, to take the time, maybe on smaller projects at first, and then to grow with them, to groove them into sort of what you're looking for, and also let them contribute creatively themselves. Black Magic Cinema Camera 2.5K, 500 pounds. Is it worth it? Not with the 4K camera on the market. Yes, double that, but come on. It's just got so much more there. Let's see. What do you think about the Osmo Action? Is it better than a GoPro? I have no idea. Bad Karma 714. I couldn't give a rat's ass about action cameras. They just don't fit into my workflow. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean I have 3 GoPros sitting in the box somewhere, and they've never done more than shoot a teeny tiny bit of content for the type of work that I do. So I've decided to stop buying them. And this is something that I've really been not grappling with, but I'm really starting to realize how much I'm looking to simplify what it is that I'm using. I have a lot of kit. There's a lot of crap around me. And I do find that as time goes on that I'm consistently going towards certain types of things. And then certain product categories, I'm just trying to get into that I can use this particular thing for a very, very, very long time, and I'm not going to have to replace it. And that's finally happened. I've just recently upgraded my tripod systems to Miller CX tripod systems. And it's the first time where I feel like I'm investing into something that is going to have the quality that I need and is matched to my rigs in a way that I can use them more effectively for my productions. Chris asked, do I lease or buy any of my kit? And by the way, it is great when you do an at the C47 because it calls out your question. It makes it so much easier for me to track when you have something that you want to ask me. In fact, I looked right at yours, Chris, and there's probably a couple more before there. So just go ahead and do that in the future. Just put an at the C47 when you're asking your question. I own a lot of my kit. I buy all of my camera systems, and I buy a lot of my lenses. Some stuff comes in through rotation because of what I do educationally, and then it goes back out. So I have a whole bunch of stuff in here now that's going to get shipped out, and I'm basically going to refresh so that I can feature things, try things, bring stuff into workshops. So it's kind of a mix. I generally don't lease. So I'll save up and then I'll buy something when I'm purchasing kit. So let's see. Yeah, and it's great that people answer questions. Like I had my answer about the Osmo Pocket and the GoPro, and other people are giving their take on it, which is what I love about, you know, the chat stuff. So there we go. Would an in-house job be a good start for someone who hasn't a lot of work to show and wants to move to another country? Bill, I would say yes, if you have that opportunity. It's also the biggest growing segment of the production market is in-house. In fact, almost everybody that's in a workshop that I teach is working in-house. So a lot of creative people there, a lot of opportunities to create content. So I think it's definitely something that you should consider. And which EU are you part of? Are you part of the actual EU or the part that I'm kind of part of, which is the UK/EU ? Is it going to be in the future kind of thing? I think jibs are still useful, APS Colombian, depending on the type of work you're doing. I think Steadicams are still, and glide cams are still useful. I'm actually more excited about the SteadyMate S from Steadicam used with a Ronin S than I am about the Ronin SC, because I think that fourth axis that you talk about with Steadicam is really the one that makes all the difference in the world. You've got, you know, you've got a vest, you've got an arm, you've got your sled, which is going to be in that case essentially the Ronin S, and it's having the ability to stabilize that vertical movement as well as the other 3 axes that a gimbal does. And by the way, I mean, a Steadicam is a gimbal, it's just not motorized. So yeah, I think all of those tools. I still like the Pocket Jib Traveler. I've used that to alleviate and take weight off of shooting B-roll in certain locations. You can still get a relatively small footprint, and if you're using a small camera system, you can balance a C100, or of course mirrorless and DSLRs. And I really like that ability to sort of float around the room and then go to another part of the room with a jib. And I think that it's maybe a different way for people to operate it. But I oftentimes, when I'm using a smaller jib like that, is I'll balance everything and then I'll go up to the front and I'll actually operate from the front of the jib and use it almost as if I have a shoulder mounted rig, but it's completely stabilized, and then I can move around. And if I put a little fluid head on there, I can pan and tilt. It's a beautiful thing. In fact, I haven't used it in a while. Maybe I'm going to take it out and hook it up with my XT3 at some point. All right, we're getting close to the end here, guys. We're at the hour mark. Bill's in Greece, so you are in the EU. Is it worth buying a speed booster for a Lumix G7? And if so, what is the least expensive one? I don't know. That's a question for Caleb Pike. I definitely think it's worth buying a speed booster for a GH5, GH5S, but I'm not sure about that. So, let's see what else. Any other last questions? Any other questions? I'm wrapping it up, kids. This is the end of the road until later this afternoon, where we have our episode of Camera and Flask, which is going to be, are we becoming obsolete? I hope not. I'm a glass half full, grain of salt person, as I said before, and that's important. I'm hoping that some of these questions that you had are helping you guys. And hopefully we'll do some more of this in the future if you would like to. We obviously want to grow the channel. That's the goal here at the C47. It's the only way I'll refer to anything in the third person is the C47. I hate referring to myself in the third person. I think that that's weird, but that's me. Any recommended material or courses for beginner documentary scripting? I don't know, Chris. Shut Up and Shoot is a pretty good book. I haven't read any ones recently. I think that when it comes to documentary, it's picking a subject matter you're interested in. You've got to create a little bit of an outline of what you think that potential story arc may be, but in documentary, obviously that can and probably will change. If you're going at it from a Ken Burns standpoint, you could watch his masterclass, which is now on Masterclass, which again is another resource for education. And that's probably where I would start. I guess that's it. Let's end this thing. Come back, 3 p.m. Eastern, Camera and Flask, me, Ben Barden, Caleb Pike. We're talking about things about the future of production and all that stuff. Any new lens I recommend? That is a loaded question, APS Colombian. The answer is no, because I need to know what camera system. I am excited about that 16-80 coming from Fuji, so that'll be it. And check out the masterclass, Chris, on Ken Burns. He's kind of the master of long-form documentary. He's not the only one, but he's really, I mean, come on, look at his body of work. And what's interesting about that is I think you'll get a look into the greater process. Though when you're working on something, pick, if you're interested in documentary, something locally, do a mini doc or a documentary short and work from there. And that'll be a great place for you to start a business, something that you are, wanting to find out about. Do it for free, and then start to create and figure out how far you want to go down that documentary rabbit hole. Okay, that's it. Thank you. I don't know what I'm going to do. Hangouts on Air is going away tomorrow. I'll have to figure it out. Like I mentioned, good chance no episode of Gearbox 2.0 next week, coming back in 2 weeks because I will be traveling. Once I'm settled on the road, I'll be able to do another episode as long as I have a good enough internet connection. Check community for my page, for my site, whatever you want to call this thing. For my destination, for my channel is the correct word I was looking for, because I'll post if there's some problem with not going live or having an episode on or 2 weeks from now. And I hope you all have a good rest of the day, and I hope most of you come back for Camera and Flask. And again, thank you very, very much for watching and participating and asking your questions. Take care.